Welcome to PENSARE Basketball Live. You know, the strangest thing happens when you lose a lot of basketball games is nobody really cares what you're doing. Everyone assumes that everyone's bad because if they were good, why would you be losing? But I got to tell you, as somebody who has watched every single Raptor game, every single Summer League game, every single 905 game, and yes, there have been some painful losses and a lot of painful process and a lot of bad performances. I got to tell you, I am blown away by this Raptors rookie class. I'll tell you something else. I've watched a lot of OKC games this year. The Oklahoma City Thunder are possibly my favorite team to watch outside of the Toronto Raptors. I've never been a Shea super fan per se, but I've become one this year. And I think that every single player on that team fits a very good role. I love their coaching staff. I love their development staff. I love their organization. They are a team with a top two player in the NBA. Depending on how you feel about Nikola Jokic, you could say maybe they have the best player in the NBA. They have the best trio in the NBA. They are effectively one of the youngest teams, if not the youngest team in the NBA. They are the best team in the NBA. And by wide margin, they are the best team in the NBA. They're a team that has not really been healthy. And when you really study how they've built it, if you look at their core, what do you see? Some of you see a lot of lottery picks. I see one player in their entire core that was picked in the top 10 in the draft, and that is Chet Holmgren, who has barely played this year. The rest of it was accumulated through attainable assets, assets like the 12th overall pick, assets like the 11th overall pick. Jalen Williams and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander were not top 10 picks in the NBA. I think that's worth remembering when we talk about tanking for Cooper Flag. There is this natural assumption that the only way to do it is through accumulating top three picks in back to back to back years. There is this assumption that you have to be bad for 4, 5, 6 years. And believe me, the Oklahoma City Thunder were bad. But did they ever stop developing? When Chet Holmgren got injured in his rookie season with his Liz Frank injury, I'm sure it derailed some of their plans that year. However, did they stop developing Chet? No, he came out year two like he hadn't missed a beat. A Liz Frank injury is very serious. The Toronto Raptors have gone through an upheaval over the last 14 to 15 months under Darko Rajakovic. They have tried to implement a process of offense that is very, very different than what they ran under Nick Nurse. This year, they have tried to scheme and create a process of defense that is very different than what they did last year and very different than what they did under Nick Nurse. And they have failed miserably across the board. Last year, they generated great looks, but they couldn't hit them. This year, they're competing their butts off defensively, but they're not very effective. I think the Raptors are modeling themselves after OKC, and what OKC knew was that sometimes you need to take a few steps back to take a giant leap forward. The Oklahoma City Thunder are specifically interesting in the sense that their core is pretty locked up. If their ownership decides to invest in that core, they have possibly one of the longest championship windows fathomable in NBA history. Shea is going to age like fine wine, barring injury. Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren. They have a lot of players who are going to age very well. They also have a lot of players who love playing together. But most importantly, they have a very valuable player archetype that they seem to model. They really understand their system. They like bigs who can shoot. If you look across the board, all of their bigs can kind of shoot. Isaiah Hartenstein can shoot. Chet can shoot. Jalen Williams can shoot. They like wings who are switchable, who can guard multiple positions across the board. That doesn't just mean that they want wings who can guard 1 through 5. They want wings who have long arms. They're really perfecting this 6'8", model 6'8", vision 6'9" that the Raptors had, and they're taking it to another level. Last night, I watched this Oklahoma City Thunder team stomp the Cleveland Cavaliers. Blitz, they play this aggressive trap style defense. It discombobulated the Cleveland coach said after the game, it felt like we were playing against 7 pit bulls, not 5, but 7. It felt like you were playing 5-on-7. And that starts with guys like Lou Dort, who was undrafted, by the way. It starts with guys like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, who did not come in with the strongest defensive reputation. It starts with Jalen Williams and Alex Caruso, a smart trade that the Oklahoma City Thunder made. I'll remind you, last night, the Oklahoma City Thunder played one 7-footer. And that 7-footer, ironically, was former Raptor Brendan Carlson, who went off for 11 points off the bench. But apart from that, who were the bigs? Okay, there was Jay Will. He was a center. He started. But I'll remind you, there was a period of time where the Oklahoma City Thunder for 2 straight weeks started Jalen Williams, J Dub, the other Jalen Williams at center. He's 6'5.5" on a good day. How is this team doing this? Well, they're doing this because they have a tremendous coaching staff. They have taken the time to develop this defensive system and their defensive scheme, but they also took the time to really invest in culture. That is a very selfless team. That is a together team. They have one of the most unique cultures and one of the most unique superstars in the NBA and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. And I see so many parallels with the types of players that the Raptors prioritized this year in the draft and what the Oklahoma City Thunder like to prioritize. Let me tell you something that's very interesting about this rookie class that I have temporarily, please, I'm waiting for some feedback here. Sometimes I can be quite wrong with my, you know, nicknames and stuff. But last night I just started thinking, what's a name that really just embodies this rookie class? And I love all five of them. And I thought Jurassic 5. Now, Jurassic 5, of course, a callback to the Fab Five, the Michigan State Fab Five, but also Jurassic 5, a shout out to one of my favorite hip hop groups growing up in the late 90s. So this fivesome, right? Ulrich, Jonathan Mobo, Jamal Shed, Jamison Battle, and Jacoby Walter. Do you know what all five of them have in common? Well, they have a lot in common. They're tremendous competitors. They are somewhat underrated prospects that kind of fell through the cracks a little bit for different reasons. Obviously, with Jamison Battle, it was going through a few different schools, maybe not getting that national buzz, hype. He's not the burstiest athlete. Maybe he was a little bit older, so people overlooked him. Well, that sounds like the type of player that the OKC Thunder would bet on. What about Jonathan Mobo, a very switchable wing who played big in a lesser conference, who had a late growth spurt, kind of still filling out his body. A little bit of a questionable shooter. If you watched Lou Dort when he came into the league, he was a very questionable shooter. He reminds me a lot of Lou Dort. What about Jacoby Walter? I feel like Jacoby Walter would have been very high on the Oklahoma City Thunder board. And had they not taken Nikola Topic, I could certainly see them taking a bit of a flyer on Jacoby Walter with that 11th or 12th pick that they had. Okay, what about Jamison Battle? Shades of, Isaiah Joe. Jamal Shed, okay. Ulrich, I could see them taking a flyer on Ulrich on a two-way contract. Yeah, I certainly could. These are all players that would fit seamlessly in OKC's scheme. And it's ironic because Brandon Carlson, the sixth rookie in this bunch, the one that the Raptors let go, the first team that signed him was OKC. When OKC is signing your rejects, you're probably doing something right. Now, of course, some Raptor fans are like, why didn't we just waive Bruno? Why we lost this 7-foot shooting big? Don't you worry. He's a 25-year-old rookie. We'll be fine. However, he could probably carve himself out a 6-7 year career. And yeah, that's a serviceable asset that you just let go for nothing to keep the flexibility of Bruno Fernando and AJ Lawson and what was it, DJ Carton. So yeah, maybe the Raptors screwed up there. They probably should have let go of DJ Carton instead of Brandon Carlson. But nevertheless, the Raptors do have 5 players that I believe in a tremendous lot. And I can't tell you how impressed I was watching Ulrich last night for the Raptors 905. The Raptors 905 did lose. Jacoby played, Jonathan Mobo played, Ulrich played. Obviously, Jamal Shed did not, and Jamison Battle did not. But watching Ulrich block shots, watching this growth trajectory that he's been on, knowing already how much I believed in him because of that conversation I had with Joe Tuamu and everything I learned about him in the offseason, I am really looking at this guy and I'm saying, if he was coming out of the draft this year, is he a lock for the first round? Would he be a lock for the late first round? Would we be looking at him with that Portland pick and saying, oh my God, I hope this Ulrich Shamshe guy who was at Texas this year, which is where he was, at least rumored to be considering going. I hope that guy is going, because let me tell you something. If you can do something at the G League level, I believe you can do that for Texas. I believe you can do that in the SEC. If you can do this against grown men in a somewhat discombobulated, disorganized style offense where there isn't a lot of game planning, there's, guys are in and out of the lineup. The G League is very tough, right? There's been plenty of guys who've actually done better in the NBA than they've done in the G League. Look at Grady Dick last year. He really struggled in the G League despite a ton of opportunity. So it's not an easy place to thrive. It's just difficult. It's difficult for a young player as raw as Ulrich to thrive, and he's become less and less raw with every passing day. Obviously, a lot of fouls, a lot of turnovers, a lot of mistakes, sure, but there's shooting potential here. There's rim rolling potential. There's short roll potential. There's so much potential. And the shot blocking has been ridiculous. Last night, I saw this guy get hit in the face. He got hit in the face and still blocked the shot. He got hit in the face, holding his head, saw out of his left eye that the guy was going to go out for a shot again, stopped holding his eye, and went back and blocked it again. I was like, oh my God. Some of the passes that Jonathan Mobo has thrown this year show extremely advanced reads, which brings me to what is really OKC's philosophy? What do they look for? Because it can't just be long arms. Okay, everybody's got a pretty solid wingspan there, but Isaiah Joe looks nothing like Case and Wallace. And Casey Wallace looks nothing like Alex Caruso and Chet Holmgren. What is the common thread here? I'll tell you what I find to be in common with all OKC prospects. They're very willing to learn. They're extremely team first. They're very committed defenders, like across the board. They're willing to buy into team. They're extremely collaborative. Like the entire thing, it's like they're very hardworking players, right? And they're multi-tool players. This, I think, is a very underrated thing. And as someone who has probably absorbed more stunted growth videos on YouTube than anyone on earth, I can tell you every time that dude drops a video, I'm always curious, why didn't this prospect work? And today I was looking at Thomas Robinson and why he didn't work. And I was thinking about my own thoughts on Thomas Robinson when he's coming out of the draft. And I'm like, there's only one path to success here. The coolest thing about every player the Raptors drafted is they're very toolsy. They may not have any one dominant trait. Maybe Jacoby is not the best shooter in the draft. Maybe he's not the best athlete in the draft. Maybe he's not the best passer in the draft. Maybe he doesn't have the best measurements in the draft, but he has so many different tools, right? Jonathan Mobo, there's question marks, big question marks. Size, sure. Age, sure. Outside shot, sure. Jameson Battle, a lot of question marks. Ulrich, a lot of question marks. Jamal Shed, ton of question marks. But they have all these different ways that they succeed on the basketball court. There's basketball IQ across the board for all five of these players. I would say they're above average at, minds for basketball. They're willing to learn. They have a tremendous aptitude for growth. They seem very coachable, all of them. Whenever you listen to their, pressers, they seem very humble. There was a coach the other day who I believe it's the UCLA coach. Was it UCLA's coach? Who blasted his college team and said, it's hard to coach delusional. And I cannot agree more. The hardest thing that I've ever run into in my life, and I've taken the role of tutor, teacher, and lecturer, boss. I've taken on plenty of leadership roles in my life. The people that were the hardest to communicate with, I've never been a coach on any level. I've never been a life coach, basketball coach. I've never coached. So just put that out there. But any chance I had to be in a leadership position, the hardest person to connect with was the person who had a delusional perspective on who they actually were. They had a delusional perspective on how good they were. They had a delusional perspective on what was good for them and what was bad for them. They had a delusional perspective on what good basketball is or bad basketball is, or in my case, what a good film is, what a bad film is, what, good work habits are. They weren't really willing to learn. Every time you got into a discussion about what you wanted from them, they were trying to tell you what they wanted from you. And it was an ego thing. You just kept bumping into it over and over and over. I'll tell you what, when I've had the opportunity, and I've had plenty of opportunities, I've been very, very blessed in this regard in my life. Whenever I had the opportunity to pick the brain of somebody that I think is significantly smarter than me, more knowledgeable than me, I'm a sponge. All I want to do is learn. All I want to do is hear. All I want to do is guide me, help me, teach me, because I accept that I have weaknesses. If I could get on a call with Joe Rogan, believe me, I'm not giving him one iota of what I think about podcasting. We're talking to Joe Rogan here. It doesn't matter what I think about podcasting. I don't have a say in this. I don't need to have a say in this to feel better about myself. And so it really helps when you have these sponges, you know what I mean? And this is a credit to the Raptors, development staff, coaching staff, to Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster, that in these pre-draft interviews, when you screen these prospects and you're doing all these athletic tests and you're, studying their game film and you're doing all the calls and you're asking for, references from their grade 6 coach. And believe me, they reach out to everybody, man, anyone who's ever coached you, anyone who's played with you, parents of teammates, they want to know everything. They want to know when you snapped in practice. They want to know that time that you were late for class. How did you deal with it? They wanted to know everything about Scotty. They wanted to know, from the people who were the I wouldn't be surprised if they called a ball boy at Montverde to ask, how did Scotty Barnes treat you? And they want to know everything. These athletes, at least the highest level in the NBA, is the highest level of highest levels. There is a magnifying glass, a microscope. And if you've ever seen a player like the Cam Whitmores and the Isaiah Colliers, and you're thinking, wow, so talented, so athletic, so this, so that, and then draft night comes and boom, 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 boom. It's because the same person called the same person, and then the news spread like wildfire. It just spread. Character issues, work ethic issues, shows up late, attitude, too egotistical, not a good teammate. See what I mean? It just spreads. Nobody wants to deal with this in the organization. The Raptors have clearly identified a personality type that works over and over. Institutional knowledge, the longer a company runs successfully, the more of an institutional knowledge that company has on what it takes to be successful. Don't just throw away the Raptors championship. Don't just brush that off and say, oh, that was 6 years ago. Whatever. What have you done for me lately? You're getting blown out by the Celtics. You're getting blown out by this and that. What? You're not a champion anymore. No, 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 no. That championship banner will hang forever. And it will hang forever. But it will also be, I will also remind you that the same people who built that team, who knew to trade for Marc Gasol and knew he would fit mid-season, who knew to trade for Serge Ibaka, who knew to trade DeMar DeRozan, who knew to ask for Danny Green, who knew what would work. The same people who identified Fred, Pascal, OG, those are the same people that are identifying Jacoby, Ulrich, the same people. Military man saying, if I get tickets to the Pendants Film Festival, do I get to meet you? I'm under 18, so that's why I'm asking. Why would you not get to meet me? Because you're under 18. For sure. Absolutely. If you come to Pendants, you will definitely meet me. Okay. But do not come to Pendants just to meet me. I mean, that would be a waste of your time. But yeah, I mean, because I'll be able to talk to you for at maximum 5 minutes and shake your hand, and I'll probably be off doing 500 other things. Okay. So all in all, I am blown away by this class, and I think they're going to be here to stay. I can't see a single way in hell that any of these players is moved before this season or before next season. I'm not saying they're all going to be here forever. I'm not saying they're all permanent staples. I'm not projecting any of them to be all-stars, superstars, or Hall of Famers. What I'm telling you is you have identified your Lou Dort, your Isaiah Joe, your Alex Caruso types. And those are hell of a player. Those are very, very good players. And none of these players are on the level of those players. I get all of that. Okay. I'm looking at the numbers the same way you're looking at the numbers. But what I'm saying is they could be better. There's nothing at 22 that you can tell me that Lou Dort is a better prospect than Jonathan Mobo. You can't. You cannot tell me that Isaiah Joe was a better prospect than Jacoby Walter, just like you cannot tell me that Ulrich Shamshay is not a better prospect than Isaiah Hartenstein at the same age. At the same age, please remember, Isaiah Hartenstein took a long, long, bumpy road to become an $81 million player. Long, bumpy road. You know what I saw yesterday when I was watching Ulrich? I saw anger. I saw a real, when you know, dog see dog. I don't know how to explain it. This dude attacks the basketball. And it was interesting because I was switching between the 905 game and then, of course, was watching the OKC smack the Cleveland Cavaliers. Just to anyone who didn't watch that game, you missed out big time. The Oklahoma City Thunder had Shea Gilgeous-Alexander had more points in the first quarter than the Cleveland Cavaliers combined. Combined. Evan Mobley plus Darius Garland plus Donovan Mitchell finished with 33 points. Shea finished with 40 points and sat the whole fourth quarter. This is a dominant team. Do you know what I saw the Oklahoma City Thunder do? I saw them attack defensively. You know what I see Jonathan Mobo do all the time? I see him attack defensively. You know what I see Ulrich do every single time he's on the court, even through all the fouls and all the mistakes that he makes? I see him attack defensively. I can't teach you to care about defense. If you don't care about defense, it'll always just be lip service. You'll do enough, but you won't care. These guys care about defense, you know? Like Jacoby cares about defense. When I saw Jacoby try to rip Karl Anthony Towns, a 7-foot human being who's 270 pounds and really one of the biggest behemoths in the NBA. And I saw him put his body on the line. When I saw him diving on the floor, when I see Jamal Shed come in a game that is completely over against the Chicago Bulls and put that team on his back and literally carry them back, almost winning them the game, I cannot measure this. I cannot measure this level of heart and this compete level. You can't teach this stuff. It's there or it's not. It's a ticker problem. You know, there's some prospects, they have a ticker problem. They don't have heart. They don't care. They you know, like practice 7 p.m., they show up at 7 p.m., 6:58, 6:55. You can't teach the will to show up at 5. Not because you think you have to, but because that's who you are. That's what you do. You can't teach caring. You just can't. You can't teach culture builders. You can't. You can't teach selflessness. You can only, with selfish people, I think you can only allow them, you can give them a little bit of feedback and information on how to be a little less selfish and maybe how to appear a little less selfish. But there's something that I've been battling with my whole life, which is the concept of nature versus nurture. And someone told me once that your nature does not change. Like you can grow old and old and old, and a lot of things can change about you, but your internal nature does not change. If you're gritty, if you're tough, that doesn't just go away, and if you're not, it doesn't just come up. Like maybe life can give you certain tools and you can learn new things, you can learn new languages, you can learn a new profession or a new skill stack. But fundamentally, if your desire, you know, like in your heart is to give to other people, I don't think that just goes away. I think you're always just going to be that type of person. You're always going to give. And if your desire is to take, if your desire is to build culture, if everywhere you go, you want to leave that place better than when you found it, that's going to make you a very successful person long term. Maybe not short term, you know, but long term. The goal of a coaching staff is to empower players, is to lift players, is to embolden players, train players, give them the tools. I can give you all the tools in the world, bro. I can buy you every book in the world, but I can't make you open it. I can give you the gym, I can give you the keys, but I can't make you, I can have you show up, but I can't make you show up if you don't want to show up, if you know what I mean. Like you can go through a shoot around, but I can't make you care about that shoot around. This I cannot do. I can greatly incentivize you. I can tempt you to care about it, maybe by dangling a contract or maybe telling you that you'll be in China next year if you don't care enough. But this ticker thing is really important to me. Now, obviously, if you don't have the tools to succeed, if you don't have, right, if you don't have that base skill set to succeed on the NBA level, because really in the NBA level, it's just about creating advantages and taking away advantages. So I don't know if, you know, if you're just too small or if you're too slow, if there's a hell of a lot you can do to compensate for that. But are you looking at this Jurassic 5 that the Toronto Raptors have? Are you looking at this core? Who's small here? Yeah, sure. You might say Ulrich is a little bit undersized for the center right now because he's young, but he's not undersized. He's huge, right? If you look at it, if you really look at it, sorry, I'm gonna put this up because I was weirdly proud of this. I'm not some Photoshop aficionado, but this was kind of cool, and I don't know why I was oddly proud of it. Look at this core. Look at this young. Look at this young team. Yeah, there are some limits here. I've been told multiple times by a person that I trust very much, Jordan, actually. So shout outs to Drenchman Sports. But Jamal Shed, who's Jordan's from that area. He's from Houston. He watched Jamal Shed a lot. He's told me before he might not make it. I know you're excited about him, Penn, but he might not make it. I've heard people tell me that Jonathan Mobile is not going to make it. I've heard people tell me Jameson Battle is probably a flyer. I've heard people tell me that Jacoby Walters simply does not have the type of separation tools and playmaking chops to be consistently more than a role player in the NBA. And I've been told that Ulrich is a 1% flyer. 1%. It's 1% likely this guy's going to make it. But I'm seeing a guy who's 18 years old for the majority of his G League season, averaging nearly 3 blocks a game in the G League. And I understand that the G League is the G League, but come on, shot blocking is shot blocking. Did you see that block on the 3-point shooter? See, again, a lot of guys are going to block shots. Guys can block shots. Fine. They can block shots. But can I teach them to aggressively want to destroy every opponent? Can I teach that dog? That's what these guys have. When can I teach you fearlessness? Do you think that or are you always going to be a little bit timid? If that's your nature, if you're naturally timid, I'm going to tell you something. This may not be, necessarily all that relevant because I was obviously not a pro basketball player, but I would get very, very nervous before games, big games. I would often get very, very nervous. I had a lot of anxiety as a kid. I thought I was tough, but I had that sort of nervousness. And every time I had a teammate who was calm as a cucumber, I would always wonder how much better I could be in everything in life if I didn't have so many nerves, if I didn't have so much anxiety. I used to get anxious about everything when I was a kid. I used to get anxious about, I used to get anxious about a new school. I used to get anxious about moves. I used to get anxious about talking to a girl. I was just anxious. I was anxious a lot as a kid. Is that something that I've completely overcome? No. It's something I'm working through. But I have a tremendous lot of anxiety, and I carry that with me. I don't know if that just goes away. I don't know. There's some people who are just going to be calmer than me, and I accept that. I accept that. That's just that's who I am. And there's elements where I can do it, or I can sensibly, I can meditate a little bit. I can count down from 10 to 1 and calm my brain down a little bit. But naturally, I'm wired to be a little bit more anxious than someone who's not. Ulrich is wired to be aggressive. There is an aggression that he plays with. He competes. He bumps people. Look at Jonathan Mobo switch out to Anthony Edwards on an island with no help. And really just look at him do that with Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey, bro? Anthony Edwards? We're talking about some of the burstiest, quickest athletes in the world. Not in the G League, in the NBA. These guys are outliers among outliers among outliers among outliers. They might be two of the quickest, first step, burstiest athletes in the league. And Jonathan Mobo, forget about the fact that he succeeded. Forget about the fact that he shut them down. Forget all of that. That fact that he wanted that assignment, that he attacked that assignment, that he confidently believed in his own lateral quickness, that he could do that. Do you understand the potential to look so stupid when you play defense that aggressively on a player that dynamic and good? A lot of people would duck that. A lot of people would try to maybe avoid the embarrassment. He thought he could do it. He thinks he belongs. This has been an entire fight. When I hear Ulrich, a lot of people clown. First of all, there's a lot of people out there who just think all of their prospects are great. I'm not one of those people. I'm gonna be honest. You've never heard me say 2 nice things about Malachi Flynn, and that's just the truth. I never got all that gassed up about Delano Banton, although I accepted that he had a chance. Justin Champagnie, yeah, I spoke very highly about Justin Champagnie and Christian Koloko, and guess what? They're both in the league. They're both in the league still, right? So it's not every prospect that just because they put on a Raptors jersey, I'm like, oh, wow, this guy's going to be a future all-star. No. But there are certain things that people say that make you think, right? There's certain things you hear from their trainer, from their, significant other, from a cousin. You hear these things. They're innocuous. They're very stupid small things. Believe me, it's like putting together like the Zeprudar film. Like it's it's not like it's not so cut and dry. It's not, oh, this guy said he's going to be a future all-star. He said he's going to work 20 hours a day. He said he's going to be in the gym all summer. It's not bullshit like that. It's small stuff, man. It's really small stuff. It's their reasoning for certain things. It's about why they went with one sponsor over another sponsor, or one, brand deal over another brand deal, and you hear about why they did that, and you're like, oh, that's very interesting. That tells me something about this person. When you hear a story about like how they met their trainer, this stuff matters to me a lot. Like the piecing together of the psychological profile of every one of these players. When Joe Tuamu shared that story, again, all of these players fit this exact same thing. I just want to be clear about that. I'm not talking about any one player. I'm literally talking about this five these five players, all of them fit this. That's Jacoby with his trainer, Jonathan Mobo with his people, Jamal Shed and everything I found out about him, Ulrich and everything I talked about with Joe Tuamu and Jameson Battle and everything I found out with him and his trainer. The stories are remarkably consistent. These guys could be brothers. They're so remarkably similar. So similar. They have dog, they have compete, they take their craft very seriously. They have extremely good work ethic. They are very collaborative. They don't bitch and complain about things. They take responsibility for things. These things matter, you know? When Ulrich and they have dreams beyond themselves. This also matters to me. This is the weirdest thing. Like when you tell me that you're 16 years old and you say to me, I want to build a hospital in my city. I, I'm not betting against you. I'm not betting against you. When you are a 18-year-old center from Bafang, Cameroon, and you are the most talkative person in a practice, and I'm not betting against you in your what, third, fourth language. I don't know how many languages Ulrich speaks. When you're asking questions of coaches, when coaches are talking to you, are you looking at them? I got clowned mercilessly 3 years ago when I was dissecting the Raptors' body language. And lately, I've talked to a lot of trainers, and they all say the first thing they look at when they're looking at whether or not they want to take a particular client on is their body language. They're looking at the body language. A player who has really terrible body language, Julius Randle, awful, awful body language, right? These things matter. These things matter. How you communicate with your teammates. Do you look at your coaches when they're talking to you? Or are you just kind of off in your own little planet, one in one ear, out the other? Is that who you are? When when coaches talk, when Darko is talking in practice, look at Ulrich. Just look at him. Watch him. When he talks to Jameson Battle, we've seen plenty of clips from Open Gym and whatever. Darko's working with Jameson Battle in practice. Watch how quickly Jameson adapts. It's, what it comes down to? It's going to sound really cheesy. It's the eye of the tiger, man. It's the eye of the tiger. Have you ever approached something with fury focus? Have you ever done something with actual persistence and commitment and like a tunnel vision towards that task? If you take your practice and your scrimmage and your 3-on-3 and your games with that level of seriousness, when you take a one-on-one moment to talk with your coach about what you're doing wrong in a shoot around, would you take it with that much focus? Who the hell am I to bet against you? Never bet against you. I would bet long on this team and this 5-man unit, this 5 rookie unit. And I am going to put this into the air, and I'm going to say this with full confidence. Yes, I am talking about a 19th pick, a 31st pick, a 45th pick, a 57th pick, and an undrafted guy. Yes, I am. But remember those numbers: 19, 31, 45, 57. You just hit the lottery. You just hit the lottery with those 4 numbers. These for 5 players. These 5 players, at least 4 out of 5, but probably all 5, are going to be at least 5 of the 30 best players from this draft. I'm willing to bet 2 of them will be at least top 12 players in this draft. That's about as far as I'm willing to go because I do believe in a lot of players in this draft. I think that at least 3 of these players are going to play major rotation roles for you going forward. And at least 4 of them will be on your roster next year. If you want to talk about extracting value and winning on the margins, finding long-term pieces, especially when you have done such a bad job managing assets, which are the Raptors, right? 3 picks out for Jakob Poeltl, 1 pick out for Thaddeus Young, losing Jonte Porter because of the betting thing, losing Christian Koloko. I mean, my God, right? Not getting Andrew Nemhard back in the Pascal Siakam deal. Like we can agree that the Raptors have done a very, very poor job of managing assets. But the few assets they did have, they have created such an overwhelming amount of positive momentum and positive value from those assets that I am truly flabbergasted, truly in awe. And I'm reminded every single day of that phrase, trust in Masai. Every day, I am in awe. I was expecting maybe 3 of these guys work out, and 2 of them are going to be in the David Johnson, never hear from them again, out of the league. Nope. DeJuan Hernandez. Nope. Jalen Harris. Nope. Okay. None of these guys project to be that. Yes, they're getting a lot of unearned opportunity, in the words of Fred VanVleet, because they're on bad teams. But I think you have the perfect staff in place to bring out the most of them. And the most important thing when you're a young player is confidence. You look at what happened in sorry, not in San Antonio. You look at what's happening with the Sacramento Kings. They are on a tremendous, I think, 8-game winning streak or 9-game winning streak. They have won almost every single game under Doug Christie, except for the first one. And why? How are they winning? Is it possible that maybe some of the players who were struggling, Devin Carter, who hadn't really played very much or played at all and was just coming back from an injury, Keegan Murray was having a bit of a slump here. Is it possible that maybe those players feel more strongly playing for Doug Christie than they did for Mike Brown? I'm not saying one thing or another. I think Mike Brown's a fantastic coach, but I'm saying sometimes it helps. It helps. When your coach actually believes in you, it helps. And what we heard from Davion Mitchell in the last post game was that this coaching staff is communicative, they're direct, they're transparent, they're honest. That's what I need. They're consistent. The messaging is consistent. The comprehension is consistent. It's so much easier to understand what you want. Like, what do you want from me? What do you want me to do? I can't satisfy you. And the other thing that I was, sorry to dance all over the place, when I was watching that stunted growth video for Thomas Robinson, it was like he was on 5 teams in 6 years. How much did that screw him up? How much has being on 3 different teams in 4 or 5 years screwed up James Wiseman? Not to mention, his Achilles tear. But what about, a lot of these young players that kind of bounce through? Do they ever have that sort of consistency? Do they ever have a team that really believes in them and is willing to pour in that long term? These are human beings at the end of the day. It is important to evaluate them as such. Anyways, Keon Ellis is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, and Terrence Davis was great. If you look at Masai Ujiri's draft record lately, if you just look at the prospects that we brought in, even the ones that didn't necessarily work out long term. Hold on, sorry, I'm out of focus. And why am I still out of focus? Come on, man. Okay, there, I'm back in focus. Okay, I got a big announcement. A big announcement. First of all, kudos and shout outs to every single person who watched our video on the Raptors draft. That was a sponsored video by this dude right here. So thank you very much to Resident One, because the NBA flagged it for copyright and we did not make a dime from that video. But I'm hopeful to make more of those videos going forward. I don't have a lot of time to make any videos. This one was hard enough. Lives are a little bit easier for me, but actual videos usually take me like a good 3, 4 hours at least. And this is just not time that I have right now with all of my commitments to the panel. This doing the post games, doing my own independent study. I study at least 3 to 4 hours of basketball every single day, so that I can give you guys the most up to date and I can be sharp for the panel. So that when you think about all of that, this is basically a full time job. Now, podcasting, basketball, all this stuff is already a full time job, and pen dance is a full time job. So I basically have 2 full time jobs. So it's really difficult for me. Speaking of which, tonight my 2 full-time jobs are going to intersect, and this is going to happen for the first time and hopefully the last time ever. But I just want to let you guys know that the post game for the Raptors and the Bucks tonight, and the timing of it could not be better or could not be worse, is going to be a little bit delayed. That is because I will be on playback with Player's Choice at 7:30, covering the Knicks and the Timberwolves. And I'm kind of hoping Carlton Towns plays. We may switch back and forth and watch a little bit of the Raptors and the Bucks as well, because obviously I'm there. I'm a Raptor fan. I'm sure they'll accommodate that, especially if it's an interesting game and it's particularly close. And so we will be switching back and forth between the games a little bit. So that means I'm going to be watching the Raptors game after 10 o'clock, and I will do my best to do the live by 11:30 or 11 o'clock. So partially this video that I'm uploading right now will be for people who otherwise want to watch Raptors content right after the game. Hopefully this live will help carry you over until I get that live out. If the Raptors smoke the Bucks, I've already told them I will, like, if I notice early that the Raptors are like blowing out the Bucks or something like that, it'll be a little bit easier because most of the game will be garbage time. If it's a super, 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 super competitive game, and I can sort of sense that from what I'm watching, because I'll keep like one screen a little bit, at least on the Raptors. If I can notice that early, what I'll do is I will probably leave playback early and I will just forego my check for the day. Because yeah, it's not worth it. If the Raptors have the win of the season against the Bucks, I don't know. I'm a little bit torn about where I am regarding vis-a-vis the tank. On the one hand, the Bucks did beat the Raptors. On the other hand, the Raptors did do a good job on Giannis. I have a weird feeling about tonight's game because the Bucks have been on a tear. They obliterated the Magic in the previous game, and of course, the Magic without Paolo beat the Raptors. So it's a little bit weird. Like, how do you make sense of this, right? Like, who beats who and who beats what? There's a part of me that thinks that the Raptors really want to go into Milwaukee and make a statement and beat the Bucks. I feel like they want to do that. And to Aaron Rose and the gentleman who asked those obnoxious, stupid, and ridiculous questions during the last post game about the tank and asking these guys, here's what I want you to know. You may privately, personally be rooting for Cooper Flag. Those guys in the locker room are not. They don't care about Cooper Flag. They don't care about Ace Bailey. They care about Giannis Antetokounmpo. They care about Jalen Brunson. They care about what's in front of them. And what the Raptors have done this year is they've run a very, very complicated defense. To those of you who didn't watch yesterday's video, to sum up my thoughts, particularly because a lot of people reacted to the title of the video, the Raptors defense is designed to fail, without really understanding the context of what I was talking about. I'm not saying the Raptors are purposely going out and trying to lose games. They are certainly not trying to lose games. What they're doing is they're making it highly likely that they will fail at what they're doing. And they're doing so because when you think about how to play defense and what is required to play defense, if you look at the most successful defensive teams in NBA history, what is it that they are great at? They're great at multiple efforts. They're great at rotations. They're great at communicating. They're great at covering up gaps. They're great at pushing defenses. They're great at making offensive players uncomfortable. That's really the hallmark of a great defense. If you look at what the OKC Thunder do, it's not that dissimilar. I mean, the schemes are very different. The personnel is very different, but the theme and the philosophy is the same as the Bad Boy Pistons, as the same as the 08-09 Celtics, or even what the Minnesota Timberwolves were doing last year in the playoffs. The goal of defense is to make offense ineffective. And to do that, you have to be on a string. You have to communicate. Well, guess what? If you switch a lot, you don't have to communicate as much, right? When you simplify schemes, you don't have to communicate as much. If you play zone, if you play yeah, if you play zone defense, I think there's a little less communication involved. Certainly, there was a lot less communication when we were playing zone. But when you're doing something a little bit complicated offensively or defensively, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. On offense, those mistakes are going to result in missed shots and they're going to result in turnovers. And if you watch last year, the Toronto Raptors, what were they doing? They were trying to pass the ball a lot more than they were comfortable with. They were trying to get away from this ISO heavy basketball that was resulting in fewer turnovers. But what they did was they had a lot of really crazy turnover games last year. But when it clicked, they blew teams out. They were doing really well. The first game, I remember with RJ and IQ. I mean, it was immaculate. It was impressive as hell, right? Oh, I appreciate that. People hate me on Reddit. I've come to terms with it. It's okay. It's perfectly okay. Anyways, that is, you know, that is not that is not a play. It's funny, like on Reddit, I've noticed that people can say something about you. Like I've read some impressively crazy shit about myself. I've read that I was a male model. I've read that I lied about my education. I've read that, I mean, someone told me I lied about my parents dying. Someone told me, what else did they tell me about? That someone doxed me for, what was it? Oh, right. Yes, someone said that I said that I was a scout for the Portland Trailblazers. What? There's so many things. There's so many things. And you know what? They get repeated, they get read 1,000 times. No one really contradicts it. No one really says anything. I don't go on there and I don't say anything. And then they just get parroted and reviewed and repeated over and over again. And then they just sort of become gospel. Maybe I should pull a Drake and sue them, but these things are not true. But I've come to terms with, just I'm not going to be popular with everybody. I'm not for everybody. And yeah, sharing shit of mine on Reddit or Real GM is never going to go over well. I don't think I'm that popular on Twitter either. So, anyways, I appreciate the respect that I got in this community. I respect, that slowly I'm building up my reputation with the PC community. And, again, over some period of time, I do think that I will be I don't know. You can only be right for so long before people start to give you your flowers, right? So appreciate it. Appreciate it, man. As always. Yeah, a lot of independent thinkers out there. Anyways, so I will do the post game a little bit late tonight. I apologize for that in advance, but I'm very, very excited about the Raptors facing the Bucks. As I mentioned, I have some complicated thoughts about whether or not I want the Raptors to win this game. But what I would really, really love if we as a community, again, I'm not telling you what to think. You can certainly have your own dog in this race. I understand your sentiments towards the draft, and believe me, I'm with you. I do think a potential franchise changing, tier one, S tier type of prospect could really change what this team is doing. But I also think Colin Murray Boyles could change what this team is doing. I also think Kaman Malawach could change what this team is doing. I also think VJ Edgecombe can change what this team is doing. I think Nolan Traore could be brilliant with the Raptors coaching staff. So I have complicated thoughts because I do think that the Raptors can find a Jalen Williams in this draft at number 12. Whereas I also think the Raptors could absolutely find a Colin Murray Boyles at 14 or 15 or a Dink Pate at 22. I mean, I walked into the season secretly hoping that they would get Cooper Flag because I just know what he could do for the defense. But there's also a part of me that's like, screw it, push for the play-in, do whatever. Look, this team is phenomenally young. If they make the play-in, it's because they're a much better team than what you think they are, right? It's a much better team than what you think they are. So at this point, win, lose, draw, I'm going to support the hell out of this team. I'm very, very confident in the young players on this team. Very confident. Do I see a superstar beyond Scotty? No, I don't. But I see 8 to 9 guys who could have very, very long careers, and they're all under 25. That's a core. That's a core. Maybe you're missing that star. Maybe you'll find that star. Maybe you'll trade for that star. I don't know. Okay. I don't know. No one thought Jalen Williams was going to be a star. I don't remember anyone saying Jalen Williams is going to be a star. Paul George is going to be a star. Devin Booker is going to be a star. Donovan Mitchell is going to be. I don't remember people calling these guys stars. Kawhi Leonard. I don't remember Giannis Antetokounmpo and Nikola Jokic are going to be stars. I don't remember Pascal Siakam is going to be a star. Pascal Siakam might be the best player on the Indiana Pacers right now. Tyrese Halliburton. I mean, that's what was Tyrese? 13th pick? Siakam, 27th pick. So, we root for lottery balls. Yes. Be happy if, we end up striking gold in the lottery. But also know that you can cost yourself 6-7 development, morale victories or whatever. But don't just toss it away. Beating the Milwaukee Bucks on the road with how they're playing right now, that could be a huge accomplishment. So let's just try to cheer the team on. Let's not try to think too much about the tank. And when it inevitably becomes clear that the Raptors wave the white flag and we start hearing about phantom bone bruises and rest and management, and we start seeing those funky lineups, then by all means, when you start to see the team wave the white flag, oh, RJ Barrett is out for personal reasons, and Ulrich Chamche is starting tonight. You'll know when this team decides to full tank mode. But in the meantime, maybe it's okay to enjoy these wins. I had conflicting thoughts when the Raptors beat the Celtics. I was like, oh, maybe not so great for the tank, but feels very, very good for them. You could see how excited they are. And I really reject this notion that this team, like, the coaches are coaching to lose or the players are playing to lose. No, the system and the situation is designed to lose. But everything they're doing is trying to beat that. Does that make sense? Nobody tries to win with 5 rookies. So if you do win with 5 rookies, that says a lot about those 5 rookies, doesn't it? Nobody is trying to win with Davion Mitchell as their starting point guard. But if you do win with Davion as their starting point guard, doesn't that say a lot about Davion? What I didn't want coming into the season was for us to pad wins against Charlotte and Washington and Portland and get some sort of sense of delusion about who we are. But beating the Milwaukee Bucks on the road and beating the Boston Celtics and beating the Golden State Warriors, no matter how you feel those teams are playing, no matter how healthy you think those teams are, it's still something to put your hat on. I'll tell you something. The Raptors have played every NBA champion with a lot of force. A lot of force. They played the Boston Celtics tough. They took them to overtime. They got blown out, and then they beat them. That's very tough. In 3 games against Boston, they have performed just about as well as anyone in the league. Okay? They played the Denver Nuggets very tough. They brought the Denver Nuggets. They were down 6. The Raptors were up 6 with 40 seconds to go, and then Scotty Barnes gets injured. They score. We go to overtime. RJ misses that shot. The rest is history. But the Raptors were going to beat the Nuggets, Warriors, and Celtics in the same 41-game stretch. Those are 3 of the last 4 NBA champions. This team dials up for the big games. Milwaukee is the other NBA champion over that stretch. So, ergo, we're going to bring it out tonight against Milwaukee, and we'll see. If the Raptors fold early, okay, clearly, the narrative will change. But if they go out there and they're up in the 4th quarter, I'll consider this a huge win for development. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a great one. They got mollywopped by OKC and Cleveland. Well, when OKC and Cleveland win a championship, let me know. Cass saying, any news on IQ status, Rob? IQ is out tonight. He was ruled out yesterday. Tony is saying, if we trade Boucher, Kelly, Brown, Yak for picks and young scraps and screw the tank into a play-in, I'm fine with it. They should have done that in 22-23 deadline by tossing out Siakam and Fred. Yes, they should have done that. And I was on record saying they should have done that. So I'm not being a Monday morning quarterback saying that I think they should have done that. I thought they should have done that back then. All right. Anyways, talk to y'all later. Have a great one and enjoy the game. I'll definitely be rooting with you guys, and we will get you covered with the post game and the call-in show and the film session afterwards. May not be the deepest film session because I'll be speed watching through the game a little bit, but yeah, I hope it's a good game. I hope it's competitive. I hope Scotty cooks the shit out of Giannis, though. Peace.